Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 5, Episode 2. Today is Sunday, December the 17th, 2017. I'm Graham, that's Tyler, that's Melissa, the same old gang is here. Melissa is on her phone, it looks like, so we hope that she is able to stay with us for the whole show. The whole show may not be a lot long because there's only a couple of games to discuss. So let's get right into it. The couple of games in question were the Vancouver Stealth in Calgary. And Calgary, unlike their first game, actually showed up to this one and won 15-12. And the other game, the Rush began their season with a 17-9 victory over the Rock in Toronto. And yeah, so I guess we can get started with our awesomes and not awesomes, seeing as there was no other real news this week that I can remember anyway. I will start with the Rush offense being pretty darn awesome. Obviously, 17 goals. They chased Nick Rose, but halfway through the second quarter after scoring 9 on him. Brandon Miller came in and was better. They ended up scoring 8 goals on him, but that was over 2.5 quarters. But in any case, Ben McIntosh looked great. Jeff Shattler fits in really nicely with the Rush offense. I thought Ryan Keenan looked pretty good. Basically everybody there. Mark Matthews had the lowest numbers of all of that group, which is just the weirdest thing ever. But it looked like he got somewhat injured at some point near, I think it was the end of the second quarter, out for a while and not playing at all. And then the very last play of the second quarter, they pulled the goalie, sent the sixth outfielder. Where was that coming from? The sixth forward out there. And that was Matthews, and he kind of stayed back and watched the play, didn't really get involved, but he was on the floor. I did see him again in the second half, but it was a little more tentative, and he didn't play an awful lot, I don't think, in the second half. So hopefully whatever injury he had is short-lived, and he'll be back to normal. But in any case, the whole Rush offense just looked really good on Friday night, and considering the last, was it Friday night? Saturday night. Considering the last couple of years, I think the Rush have started off pretty slow and then really sort of taken off after that. This might bode well for a good season for the Rush. Tyler, what's next?
I'm going to continue on that theme for my awesome, which is a Rush player I don't think you even mentioned there, Robert Church. And watching him play offense completely reminds me of watching Jeff Sawicki 10 years ago down in San Jose. Like same body build, same exact dodges, and then he'll cut by a defender and then reach back up and tuck it over the goalie's shoulder. It was just an exact reminder of what watching Wick do that in San Jose looked like. It was good memory for me because I got to sit down right on the glass and watch those happen in front of me, and then I got to see somebody do it again. And nobody talks about him that much because there's so much firepower on that team. But they spread the ball around, and when he gets his turns, it's fun to watch him, Robert Church, play offense like that. Melissa, what is your first awesome?
My first awesome is the goalies from the Stealth and Calgary games. I think it was pretty awesome that Chiliano had 51 saves compared to McDonald's 31. So that would be my first awesome. And I don't have much to add to that. So what about you, Graham?
All right. My next one will be, I went with the Rush offense, so I guess the other one, I will go with the Calgary offense. And like I said before, they didn't seem to show up to the first game at all. I think they scored 6 goals, and Dixon had none, and Dobie had none, and Berg had none. So in this game, they found their offense again. Dixon had 3 goals. Riley Lowen had 3. Holden Katoni had a natural hat trick in just a couple minutes in the first quarter. Dane Dobie scored. Wesley Berg scored. Even Tyson Bell got into it. So they really figured out what was going on. Whatever issues they had in the Rochester game were gone, and Calgary's back. So that looked really good. As I think we'll get to pretty soon, Zach Currier had a really good game. And I mean, after 2 games in the NLL, people are talking about, okay, when's this guy going to win Transition Player of the Year? Will it be this year? Will it be next year? Will it be every year for the next 5? Probably a little premature to be talking about that right now, but he did look really good in those 2 games. And this is not particularly surprising, seeing as he was the expected second overall pick, ended up being the third, but everybody knew he was going to be a pretty special player, and it looks like that's the way it is so far. So Calgary offense was pretty awesome, and that's my second one. Tyler, what's yours?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Zach Currier there. And he had one goal where right off a face-off, he scooped the ball up, started taking an angle towards the goal. He actually had a defender with him who was pushing, and then like pushed enough where the defender thought, all right, I took away his angle. We're fine here. I'm going to make sure I kind of maybe turn my head a little bit because it is a fast break and unsettled. And Curry just kept going. And he, from the front of the cage, not from behind and dunked it, but from the front, went in, jumped over and did a little air gate dunk. And it was incredible, a great individual effort. And to finish the game and seal the victory, he had another great effort where, Stealth, it was close enough that Stealth had a chance if they could get the ball up the field and get a quick goal late in the game. And Stealth get possession deep in their own zone. Player, whoever it was, turns to go up, and boom, Curry was there and checks the stick. He's like, how's that guy even up here? Like, what's going on? Currier was there. Battles for a loose ball, gets up to midfield, gets the ball himself. He's got 2 stealth people on him. He's at the spot where they could, with a good shove, take a step, and he'd be pushed for an over and back. So he's like, got the ball, all right, flips it up in the air to himself, like flips it, steps between the 2 defenders just enough, catches the ball, and then goes down and kills more time. It was incredible. Like, to watch that, I was just like, ooh. It was the coolest little in-game ball trick, maybe technically like a dodge, right? It's like he had to get through people. So he's dodging by flipping the ball to himself and into space. It was fun to watch. Steven Stamp noticed it. He had a tweet about it, and I noticed it, and I absolutely loved it. So Zach Currier's individual play is my second awesome for the week. How about you, Melissa?
So I'm actually pretty amazed with what the Rush did. As we talked about last week, with the Ruck already having a game under their belt and then playing the Rush who hadn't, we definitely wondered, hey, what Rush team are we going to see? And the fact that they came out and kind of dominated the Rock is pretty impressive. I like the fact that it sounds like they just are off to that good start, and it makes me wonder what they're going to do with the rest of the season. So definitely kind of echoing what's already been said, their offense seemed to really come together already. And sometimes, as we already know, that the way they start the season isn't always the way the rest of the season goes. But the past few years, the Rush have come out strong, and they just play strong. And I don't know what they're doing that's different from some of the other teams, but they just look really solid, and we all picked them to at least finish pretty high. So I think they're already showing us that, yeah, they're going to be one of those teams to reckon with. So definitely have to give some awesome to that. What about you, Graham?
All right, my next one was going to be Zach Currier's sort of air gate goal that Tyler mentioned. That was pretty impressive. But you did mention that, and so I'll move on to the next one, which is Tom Schreiber. He only had 1 goal and 1 assist, but the Rock offense was not super powerful Saturday night anyway. So, I'm certainly not blaming him for that. But so in terms of numbers, it wasn't outstanding. But just watching him work, he just works so hard at everything. Obviously, he can score with the best of them. He's a great passer. And we all know he's an outstanding field lacrosse player, but there's a lot of aspects of box lacrosse that are very different from field lacrosse. And he seems to have really figured those out very quickly. And I don't know if it's a kind of a, hey, I can do this in box lacrosse. There's no way I can do this in field. So it's very cool that I can do this. And so he like I said, he seems to be figuring those things out. if the ball's anywhere near him, he's on the defender trying to get it. He's digging out loose balls in the corner. He's hitting people. He's diving across the crease. He's like shooting with accuracy. He's doing it all, and just there's no quit in the guy. He's just working really hard all the time, and it's impressive. I'm really enjoying watching him playing for the Rock. Yeah, so that's my last awesome. Tyler, do you have any more?
Yeah, I've got one more just around the rush offense. There's sadly for everybody else in the league, there's no quit in the rush offense. They had a possession with about 2.5 minutes left in the game when the game was already set up, and we knew the result was not in question anymore. And they still ran a solid offensive series and made the effort to score a goal to get their last goal of the game. And like that late in the game, when it didn't really matter, they didn't quit. And then there's another time, I want to say in the third quarter, but they had drawn a penalty, and they took about 30 seconds, took a shot, got the rebound, and took another 30 seconds, took another shot, and got the rebound. So they were on offense for at least 90 seconds, and maybe there's even a third rebound they collected. But they just controlled the ball. The Rock were exhausted, and the rush offense, like they wouldn't quit on it. Like even though they knew that as soon as the Rock touched the ball, they would get the ball back and be man up. They said, no, I'm going to get that loose ball now while they're tired, and they didn't quit on that possession. So that's very awesome, very impressive, and very scary for everybody else to have to deal with. Melissa, I think you got one more awesome here. Go ahead.
I think Logan Schuss is pretty impressive with his 5 goals and 3 assists. He made an impression on us last season, and it looks like he's already off to a pretty good start. So I would definitely say he was a big part of that game, and so definitely some awesome there. What about you, Graham?
Yeah, and I'm out of awesomes, but I'll add to yours, and Shuss's numbers so far this year are even more impressive when you consider what Corey Small and Reese Dutch have done, which is not a heck of a lot. I guess if we're going into the not awesomes, that's where I'll start with. In the first game, as we know, Dutch didn't score at all, and Small didn't score at all, and that was, I think, Brad Challoner said that was the first time that's happened since the two of them have played together for the Stealth. And we were 2 minutes away from that happening in consecutive games before Reese Dutch actually scored with like a minute 50 or something left in the game. Ended up being a kind of a meaningless goal, other than it stopped that crazy statistic from happening. But either way, after 2 games, Dutch has 1 goal and Small has 0. So something's got to get figured out in Stealth Land there, similar to something that's got to get figured out in Rockland over here. So yeah, I don't know what I don't know if Dutch has gone 2 consecutive games without scoring ever, other than I guess last year's playoff game and this year's season opener, but there was 6 months in between those 2. And I imagine Corey Small probably never has either. So the fact that they're both doing it at the same time is really not good news for the Stealth. So that's certainly not awesome. Tyler, what do you got?
All right, not awesomes. I will continue that theme with the Stealth, like as a whole. Take out Logan Schuss, and his effort in that game on Friday would have been completely unwatchable. The defense is not stopping the offense from collecting loose balls. They are getting out hustled there. They're not stopping offense from shooting where they want to at times. Goalie play has been subpar. The self-classified post-game report, they said that it was basically a game-time decision to go between Ty Belanger or Brody McDonald. They stuck with Belanger because he's been their starter last year, and so he's their number 1, and didn't work out. But I don't think it's all on him. in the moment, when I was very frustrated with the way that the game was going, I said, we sure Lintz can coach defense, coming off the floor and taking that role behind the bench for the Stealth. The other, like Ian Hawksby, he was interviewed and said Lintz has a great mind. Again, Stealth Classified podcast, they said Lintz has a great mind and he knows all about the game. But, I mean, you can know all about the game, but if you can't convince the people to go do it in a cohesive fashion, that doesn't equal being the right guy for the job. And so I'm worried about that. It's very reactionary when you're losing 2 games to try to find some blame as what's going on. But it is a concern I have there around the defense and the goalie play. And I haven't even talked about the offense, where you just covered everything, so I'm not going to repeat you, Graham. But it's not fun to watch. Melissa, any not awesomes that you've come up with from the weekend?
So mine's a little bit of a side note because it doesn't pertain to the games. An article on the NL site that I kind of take issue with, and so that's kind of my not awesome. It's, can the Colorado Mammoth win the Champions Cup without a dominant goal scorer by Adam Levi? And I take issue with it because I would actually say that the seasons we've had a dominant scorer, we've actually done the worst. So having as great as Gary Gait was, and I will not argue that he is one of the best players to ever play, it was really hard and frustrating to watch as a fan because so many of the plays ran through him that they actually didn't accomplish nearly as much. And then there was the season that we also had Paul Gate on the team, and so they tried to force a lot of plays. Past several seasons with John Grant Jr., who very talented player, but has struggled in many ways in his older years or with this team, however you want to look at it. And so a lot of times when you have a dominant scorer and everything is ran through them, the fact that everything is going to go through this player, I actually think is, and so I actually think the fact that we don't have a stereotypical dominant scorer actually is a good thing, because it's the year that the Mammoth won the championship, and to be fair, that is literally the only year they even made it past the first round of the playoffs. We didn't have a dominant scorer. We had this group of players that you took out one player, and all of a sudden there was 3 other players that could take their place. And that was one of the best teams I've ever seen play. And so I do take issue with this article because I think the fact that we don't have a dominant scorer might actually do us better. It's one of those situations like, hey, no, we can win the Champions Cup just because we don't have John Grant Jr. on the team and nobody's holding their breath for him. We have a lot of talent, and it's how this team is going to come together, work as a team or a group of individuals. In the past several seasons, team be a group of individuals. That is kind of I completely and utterly disagree with this art that was posted on the NL site. So, what about you, Graham?
I actually saw that article today as well, and my first thought was, well, it's not like they don't have a dominant scorer. They have Brian Benesh and they have Zach Greer. Now, Greer's injured for right now, but Benesh has won the scoring title in the NLL. He's been probably in the top 10 a handful of times. So it's not like he's some nobody that can't score. And they pretty much didn't have John Grant last year either. And Callum Crawford stepped up and showed that he was an elite scorer in the league. So is it true that the Mammoth no longer have somebody who, true enough, is it true that the Mammoth don't have somebody who some people might consider one of the top 3 ever to play? Well, that's true, but that's been true for almost every team. So, any team that doesn't have the Gary Gait or John Grant or John Tavares on it can say that. So, it's certainly when I first saw that article, I thought that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Can they win without him? Of course they can. I mean, everybody else can. And to say that they don't have a dominant scorer is just wrong anyway. So, yeah, that was a bit of a weird article. My next not awesome, I actually only have two, so this is the other one, the last one for me, was The Rock. I mean, Tyler went with the stealth for his. I'm going with the Rock for mine. Was both 0-2. I usually write up a game report for games that I see for my blog, but I never had a chance today, so I haven't really looked over it in great detail. But one of the things I was going to say was just that the rush defense, the transition, the offense, the goaltending, and the special teams. Other than that, it was kind of even. But there was a fight that the Rock won, so we got something going. But yeah, I mean, the Rush had better defense. You could say that on almost every game that the Rush play, and almost regardless of who they're playing. Their transition was solid. I thought that it wasn't like the Rock played okay, but there were a couple of really nice transition goals, and actually Jeff Shatler got involved in the transition as well. And I mean, as a former transition player and a former transition player of the year, that's not surprising. Their offense was obviously excellent. Evan Kirk had a very good night in goal, making some outstanding saves. And the Rush just dominated everything. The Rock looked like it was funny because the Rush looked pretty sloppy at times. There's a lot of dropped balls and a lot of missed passes and a lot of passes to where they think somebody was going to be, but they weren't. And so it was pretty sloppy from the Rush all around. Less sloppy from the Rock, just not as good. So, so hopefully the Rock just look at the first two games and figure out what's gone wrong and solve it, because this could be an awfully long season if they have all of these great players who just can't play together. And I guess that's always the danger when you put a bunch of really good players together. Will they gel as a team? And I'm certainly not putting any kind of blame on Adam Jones or the return of Rob Hellier or anything like that. But you just never know when this kind of stuff's going to happen. So hopefully they get that figured out and turn back into the Rock that we all know and love. And by we all, I mean me. So that's it for me. Tyler, anything left?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the attendance numbers for another Friday game, this time in Calgary. They had 9,708 people, and that's well below the averages they had last season. But just a couple weeks ago, they had 12,857 people show up for the preseason game. So they had a 25% drop-off between the preseason game and the one that actually matters. Though they were playing the stealth in that game too. So I imagine there are people who went to that first game like, I've already seen the stealth play, and they didn't want to come back. And I imagine that there were tons of giveaways with the synergy of the NHL team, the Flames, owning the team, that maybe every Flames season ticket holder got a free ticket to the preseason Roughneck game in order to try to hook them in. So there's ways they could easily bump up that attendance number because it was a preseason game and it didn't really matter. So I imagine something like that happened, and then when they get to the actual game on a Friday in December, when the fans aren't quite ready for the NLL yet, they're just not used to it, they come rolling in with for them, not a great attendance number at 9,700. So that was a bummer to see, but over time they'll get it back. They know what they're doing. They have good marketing staffs, and but it was not a good starting point compared to what was possible for them. Melissa, what do you have?
I have to find it kind of funny, though, that we're talking that 9,700 was bad attendance, since we know some teams are struggling to do 3,000. So I have to always humor in that. But yeah, I definitely agree. It's kind of crazy to think that they got more to a preseason game that had no meaning whatsoever. I think other leagues, but I had to find some humor in that. My not awesome kind of echoes what Graham was saying with The Rock, that It just kind of what happened. And I can completely relate to what Graham was saying, that talent and what's going on. Why is this team not gelling? Because I watched so many of the Mammoth teams lately do this, where we have all this talent and they just can't seem to play together. So the Rock definitely did not play to their best this weekend, and so that's kind of my not awesome. But as Graham pretty much said, that I'm echoing. It'll be interesting to see if after a few games, if this team really gels. To struggle all season, because as we know, you can have the most talented team in the world, but if they play as individuals and not a team, you're not going to have a good season. And I've certainly watched that with my own team. So it'll be interesting to see if they pull it out. Did you have anything else, Graham?
I do not. I'm done with my awesomes and my not awesomes, but I think Tyler may have another one left.
I've got one more that I stumbled upon. Over the past year or so, I've taken to watching a lot of YouTube. My TV has a built-in YouTube app, so I can find stuff right there, or I can put stuff on my phone and push it up there. But because of that, when I load up, I can see, oh, here's the videos that the people I follow have published, including the NLL. Like on Tuesday or Wednesday even, I don't know, middle of this week. It was after we recorded last. So I think it was even Wednesday. They posted up some new video formats. They had Jason Gregoire, Tyson Geik, and the new woman who's working with Tyson on videos. The three of them sitting around a table, like kind of like we do, like this summer, like recapping the games. And then they had a new one called The Box, which is their pre-game or the game previews. And then on Wednesday, they posted The Box for all the games the weekend before. It's like, did somebody like forget the upload button? Did they? Because like they made the effort to make those videos, and just I'd say they stumbled a little bit coming out of the blocks on that one. And this weekend, things were published ahead of time, if I recall correctly. But it kind of cracked me up. Here's your game preview for the games that already happened. Like, well, don't do that again, please. But I doubt they will. They know what they did, but it was kind of not awesome that if you're kidding the league, like, all right, cool, like they posted a new video for this hot new league that I love because somebody has found it and they follow them on YouTube and preview, like they're not playing this weekend. Like, if you don't know what's going on, it's a little screwy. So that was my last not awesome. I know they'll fix that because it's a pretty easy fix, but it was not as polished as it could have been. All right, that's it.
All right. We will move on to our predictions, and it sounds like Melissa's almost out of battery on her phone, so we'll let her quickly get her predictions in for the upcoming week. So, Melissa, go quick.
Yeah, I'm down to 3%, so I might disappear very quickly. Buffalo and Rochester, I'm going to go with Buffalo. They came out pretty strong. Rochester also came out strong, but we're going to go with Buffalo. Rush versus New England, we're going to go with Rush. They've already shown that they're coming out strong. Georgia and Colorado was a little tougher. And part of me, of course, I want to be the homer and cheer for my team, but it seems like when I choose against my team, they seem to win. So there's kind of a mixed bag there. We'll go with Georgia and hope that I'm wrong. And I guess since Graham tied me in last week, I guess that takes it back to you. Because otherwise you and Tyler are tied.
That's right. Okay, so going over last week's predictions, Tyler went 0-2, and Melissa and I both went 2-0. And since I was 0-4 in the first week, this is a big turnaround for me. So I'm pretty happy with that. And as I tweeted yesterday, I have yet to get a pick wrong since week 1. So that's pretty good. Right. So since I was 2-0 last week, I'll go next. And my picks actually echo Melissa's. So I went with Buffalo in the Rochester game. As Melissa said, they both came out strong. They both actually came out much stronger than I expected them to. And if Matt Vince continues to play the way he played in the last game, which was the way he played 4 or 5 years ago when he was goalie of the year for like 4 straight years, that he's going to be tough to beat. But I like the way Buffalo looked. Bouquet looked pretty comfortable in the net. Their offense looks pretty darn strong, and so I'm going to go with Buffalo there. New England, Saskatchewan, we're already at the point in the season where we just pick the Rush every week. Yeah, they were just too strong last week, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Georgia, Colorado, yeah, this one was tougher, but I think Georgia is going to turn it around. Now, I thought the Rock were going to turn it around, even though I picked Saskatchewan last week. I did expect a better performance from the Rock and didn't get it. So I think that'll be different for this Swarm, though. I think they will turn it around and become the Georgia Swarm that we saw last year, and they will take the game from the Mammoth. And Tyler, what do you think?
Okay, I have the first game that I initially picked Rochester because I really liked what they did against Calgary, but that's not saying much. And then I ended up switching. My final choice is Buffalo, and you already mentioned Alex Bouquet, and he really came to his own during last summer with New West. Like he was their number one during the Man Cup. They didn't even alternate with Ty Belanger, who's another person who can play in the NLL. They said Bouquet can play, and he got a lot of confidence, and he showed it in that game against the Rock. And so he's the reason I ended up picking Buffalo to win this game, even though there's many other factors. And considering that if you go goalie to goalie, you pick Matt Vince over Bouquet 9 times out of 10. I don't know. But the whole team aspect does matter. But I like the way Bouquet is playing and the Bandits as a whole versus the potential of Rochester. Just not sure what we have there. New England at Saskatchewan. I picked the Rush to win. Like you said, at this point, you just pick the Rush. New England beat Georgia, so they had a great start. Aaron Bold returning to the Rush, where he's been for 4 or 5 years at least in the past. So that'll be a little maybe emotional for him. He'll be up and ready for the game, but the team on the floor defensively for the Rush, they've got the people to shut down the Crowley and Evans and make a big difference in that game. Finally, Georgia at Colorado. I picked this game correctly last year. I think I was the only one, and I said Colorado will beat Georgia, even though Georgia at that point had like 4-game win streak or something. But I think it's hard for Georgia to travel into Colorado. They might have a little revenge in their mind from last year losing there and last weekend or 2 weekends ago losing to start their season. But there could be a little bit of a championship hangover there and finding their feet again to get going this year. But Colorado looks good. They're at home. They had a great time this past weekend in their bye week. They also got together and practiced and got to take advantage of an NHL team owns us, and they went out on the ice during the Mammoth game and had tons of fun and camaraderie and team building, and that stuff really matters. It really makes them have a positive attitude and will put them on a winning track in my mind. So I have Colorado to win that game as opposed to you two with Georgia. So I can make up a little bit of ground here in the standings on Melissa. That's what I got.
All right. We normally try to record on Sundays, and next week, of course, is Christmas Eve. And I think we've already figured out that most, if not all of us, are not available on Christmas Eve. After that is the week of Christmas, of course, and we're all pretty busy that week as well. So we may not have a show next week at all. Then the next week is New Year's Eve, and we haven't really talked about that one yet. So hopefully we'll be able to record something whether it's New Year's Eve or maybe even New Year's Day if we're all not hungover. So we'll probably not see anybody next week. We'll be returning in a couple of weeks. So for all of you celebrating Christmas next week, a very Merry Christmas from all of us. And I guess that will do it for another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. I'm Graham. Thanks for listening. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.